Well, lobbying within the ANC is intensifying ahead of its National General Council in December. It's a midterm review platform where factions often test support and float leadership alternatives. The name of former President Thabo Mbeki has resurfaced in political discourse. Well, we're joined now by political analyst Piet Croukamp. Hi, Piet. How are you?
Good afternoon. Well, thanks for having me.
Can we start with Thabo Mbeki? Well, is there any credible indication he might make himself available again?
No. I still look. I don't think anything will happen before the National General Council. That's in December, because that's where the current leadership of the ANC will be held accountable for whether they implemented the 55th conference's decisions and resolutions. And I think there's a bit of a water hold on any decision before then. I did hear the rumor about, but that's mostly News 24 that reported that the likeliness of Thoko Didiza being asked to stand as a candidate. That's more credible. She's a very good politician. She's been around for a long time. She's done important jobs. She's been at agriculture. She's now the speaker. It is possible, but the ANC's got a very bad track record when it comes to electing women as the president of the party. So it seems possible, but rather unlikely. Thabo Mbeki is very unlikely. I think that's more or less the same as the argument that Patrice Motsepe might be available for the presidency. Thabo Mbeki is very old. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think he's at the point where he would like to influence who will be president rather than becoming president himself. So yeah, there will be lots of rumors now, as I think people are testing the waters and sending up a signal and see how other factions in the ANC respond to that. I think it's very unlikely. In fact, I don't take that to heart at all, that suggestion or possibility.
Well, Senzo Mchunu was seen as Ramaphosa's preferred candidate. Have the recent allegations taken him totally out of the running? And there's all these names that are propping up, like Thabo Mbeki, like Thoko Didiza. Is that an effort for the Ramaphosa camp to come up with another name?
Strangely enough, the Ramaphosa camp, or Ramaphosa himself, seemed to be completely uninvolved in whoever his successor will be. He seems disinterested in the topic completely. So I don't think he himself is pushing any possibility. Look, it could be that those that are strongly associated with him, that they start looking at a replacement for him in an effort to save their own careers. But I don't see that really. I don't see... it's not obvious. If it happens, it's not obvious. And in the ANC, usually if something like that happens, you pick it up very quickly, because they do tend to speak out, the different factions and camps and voices. I think the best is to accept that there's nothing happening at this stage. The names bandied about is Fikile Mbalula, Thoko Didiza. Now you heard of Thabo Mbeki. It used to be Senzo Mchunu. I think he's more or less out of the running now. Thabo Mbeki is out of the running. Mchunu is out of the running. It leaves us with Thoko Didiza and Fikile Mbalula. Fikile Mbalula has got the image of a, without being derogatory about it, of a village idiot within the ANC. Nobody takes him seriously enough, I think, to stand for the presidency. So I would keep an eye out still for Paul Mashatile, and then of course whoever receives the blessing of Gwede Mantashe. At this stage, it looks like Gwede Mantashe supports the Paul Mashatile candidacy. But everything is still very fluid. There's still a lot of time, days to go, a lot of hours, a lot of weeks, a lot of months to go before we can get some clarity on the future leadership of the ANC. In fact, sorry, this is the last point.
Yeah, sorry.
I asked my colleague at UNISA, Dirk Kotze. Dirk knows everything. He's well informed about the ANC. If he does, and he said to me, Piet, I don't know. And if Dirk doesn't know, God doesn't know. So I think nobody knows.
And Mchunu, totally out of the running because of the Madlonga Commission.
Unless there's some, look, we also thought about Jacob Zuma. He was a very destructive force. He was fired by Thabo Mbeki. It looked like his political career was at the end of its lifespan. And he made a comeback because there were enough destructive forces at the time, the unions, the youth leagues, who acted very destructively at the time, who wanted Thabo Mbeki out, who wanted somebody else to replace him, regardless who replaces him, as long as there's another candidate. So it could well be that something as destructive as that rises to the top again, but I don't see it now. And I think nobody else does.
Well, I recently actually spoken to a businessman who said they are backing Paul Mashatile, and I was quite surprised. But he said, not because they support him, because they believe if he stood, that would accelerate the collapse of the ANC. So how do you interpret that?
I wonder what type of businessman is he, because he will also go down, she will also go down if Paul Mashatile manages to, because just remember the ANC at this stage, if the ANC goes down, it will have massive consequences, because opposition parties are not geared towards taking over. Imagine there's an election, for instance, and the DA gets 25 or maximum, absolutely maximum 30% of the vote. They will have to govern in a coalition with other parties, the Patriotic Alliance, Action South Africa, all these smaller parties with whom they have a horrible, horrendous relationship as it is now. It is not possible to foresee a stable coalition outside of one that the ANC is involved in at this stage. We don't want the EFF and the MK party as part of the coalition. And if the ANC collapses, what is left of the ANC, because it will collapse, it won't mean it will disappear. It might be a 25% party. Well, if it goes into a coalition with the MK party and the EFF and Action South Africa and some of the other smaller parties, it can still form a coalition. We don't want the ANC to collapse. We want them to be voted out by a coalition of reasonable political parties, reasonable men and women. And that scenario don't seem to be able to crystallize now. So, I'll be surprised if there are too many businessmen with such a high risk scenario for the future of electoral politics in South Africa.
Well, if we're talking about leadership, and these contestations or these contests really hotting up. If you look at the DA, is John Steenhuisen's leadership secure ahead of their next Congress?
Look, I had been one of those who criticized John rather harshly when he was elected and criticized the DA. I remember me saying that the DA is elected a leader who can never be president, because we're not going to have a white man being a president anytime soon. And even if we will have a white man, it will not be John Steenhuisen. That I remember me saying that. Having said that, I've noticed that since he became a cabinet minister, he's also become a better leader of his own party. I think he's doing significantly better than in the past. I have spoken to some of the people, some of the party leaders who gathered this past week. You will know that Ramaphosa got his, all the party leaders, members of the coalition party, all 10 got together and they went to the cradle of mankind. And they sat there for 2 days. And I've been reliably informed that John Steenhuisen and Ramaphosa worked remarkably well during those 2 days. In fact, it looks like their recent visit, they've been together to Asia, that there's a bit of a bromance growing between the two. So, and you also see it in the final report on the 2 days. It looks like there's a lot of consensus, and Ramaphosa is now buying into the idea of the government of national unity in the same way that he bought into it when it originated in May 2024. So, and it looks like the relationship between these two defines what exactly the government of national unity will be and will become. So John Steenhuisen, I think, is doing better. He's having trouble. When I listen to farmers or the agricultural sector, they battle foot and mouth disease in South Africa, and many of the farmers blame him for inability to really do something about it. He's having a very, very difficult portfolio. I think when he asked to have that portfolio, or when he took up that portfolio, he thought it might be somebody that shares his narrative about what is good and what is great about agriculture and economic growth and private ownership and property rights and stuff. He thought it's going to be relatively easy. Well, it turned out to be a very, very difficult portfolio. It's always been a very difficult one. And I think the expectations had been very high for the side of agriculture for what he can do for them. And politicians can't always do what you think they can do or what they promise you that they can do. And I think I'm not saying he's a failure, but it is. I think he finds it a little bit more difficult than he expected it to be. So yes, as of now, I can't imagine that there's anybody else. The only other individual that I think within the DA that could step up to the plate is maybe Jordan Lewis. He's doing a marvelous job in Cape Town, running the city very well. He's very acceptable, I think, across the board in different identities within the DA. But I don't think he will oppose John Steenhuisen. He will simply not do it. I'm being told that they're good friends. So he'll probably not. He won't oppose him. He will bide his time, wait his day. And it looks like John Steenhuisen wants to run for another term, and he will most likely be elected. And given his good relationship now with Ramaphosa, maybe it's the best thing to do. Maybe it will be good for the DA. Whether that will allow them to get around about 400,000 black South Africans who feels rather attracted to the party, but didn't turn up at the election in May 2024. If you look at the surveys and statistics of surveys that was done before the election, there were only about 400,000 black South Africans who felt that they could be DA voters, but they didn't turn up. If you want to attract those, and that was unless the DA can do that, they probably won't get to 30%. You might need a different character, a different politician, or they might the base, the power base, the leadership base of the DA might have to broaden a little bit before they can actually do that. So if you want more of the same, relative stability, and you accept that the ANC will probably in another election get 40% of the registered voters that turned up at the election, he's probably the best person to hang around and to keep as the leader of the DA.
Yeah, the message from that, that wasn't a Bosparad, about the GNU getting together, what was it's alive and well, with that you were getting. But there always is the issue of foreign policy, where they're clearly not in alignment. Is there any sort of progress on that, or any rumors of what's happening, whether the DA can in fact, have any effect on foreign policy?
Look, I think the DA and the ANC is actually closer than most people think. If you listen to John Steenhuisen in the White House, he actually supported Ramaphosa in terms of the South Africa's foreign relations. They have a difference about what's happening in Israel, but somehow the DA don't make a big thing about Israel. They do support Israel, but they do so quietly. They don't campaign on behalf of Israel, and they don't make strong foreign policy views. They don't have strong foreign policy views that they express frequently and regularly, given the circumstances and the situation in Gaza. They don't express much of that. So other than that, the idea of broadening South Africa's markets to other countries, even Asia, I think they're in agreement with the ANC, the DA. I was at a meeting the other day, or a few months ago, when John Steenhuisen actually said that they have managed to go into agreements with some Asian markets that could accept South African agricultural produce and products. So it looks like there's more of an agreement between the two parties than one would think. I know that during this 2-day Bosparad, some of the smaller parties try to put foreign policy on the agenda as a point of discussion, and seek to get that to become the realm of the government of national unity, as opposed to that of the ANC. But they apparently never got to that. They never discussed that. That wasn't part of the 2 days. They had other issues which they addressed. Foreign policy wasn't one of them. And it looks like most parties accept that you're not going to arrest that off the ANC. And as it is now, there's not much we can do differently. We can't change the mind of Donald Trump. We certainly can't withdraw our case at the International Court of Justice. We can't change our policy towards Israel. We already have changed our views on Russia. I think the ANC's policy towards Russia has changed significantly. It's more aligned with the African policy towards Russia. You'll remember when Ramaphosa, as part of an African delegation, visited Russia, he openly criticized the children that was removed from Ukraine to Russia. So, and I think he has now accepted that South Africa will align its policy towards Russia with the African view of what's happening there. That means they probably won't interfere much. They don't voice strong opinions regularly about Russia. And yeah, so I think the ANC and the DA is much closer than most people think about it, yeah.
Hans Pienaar wrote in Business Day that he thought the sting could long have been pulled from the right-wing backlash had Ramaphosa, I'm talking about in the US, come out and stated that the singing of Kill the Boer was no longer necessary. And that might have, take some of the venom out from the US. Do you think that might make a difference if Ramaphosa comes out stronger, not only saying, but it's, what he's saying at the moment, it's not legal in the country, but actually making a stand about?
Yeah, he said it's not policy. And I was the one who said that he dropped the ball. He had the opportunity to say, I condemn it. It doesn't make it illegal. There are many things that are legal but could be unethical. Many things that you could condemn, even though it's legal. It just means you condemn it. You disagree with it. You strongly disagree with it, but you accept the law and you accept the jurisdiction and where that decision has been taken, which is the South African courts. So I myself thought that at the time the president could come up strongly and say, I personally and my political party condemn that. I don't know if that will have changed a lot. I don't know if you could pacify the right wing in South Africa. They're pretty much like the American president. You can't change their minds about anything. The right wing will, in South Africa, the conservative group Solidarity and AfriForum and Urania and even the Freedom Front, they make capital hay. They make a lot of hay out of having strong views about Ramaphosa. And they're certainly not going to say, oh, well, no, he's now done really well, the president, and he governs now for the better. That's not what they will never say that, because for them it's the idea of the Afrikaners, and they say Afrikaners are not a victim, but they paint them like victims. The 144 laws that discriminate against them, the farm murders that's aimed at them, the organized crime that targets them. I know Teens Elof talks about the boiling pot of Ramaphosa, where he boils the Afrikaners, and then there from the Thule house comes Fikile Mbalula, the scorpion that stings the frog, and he stings the frog all the time. They paint the picture of a victim. And then they say, but we never said there's a genocide. We don't think of ourselves as victims. The doublespeak amongst the right-wingers is confusing to everybody. I don't think as much as I criticize the ANC, and as much as I think the ANC has almost destroyed South Africa, I honestly don't think we want to go down the path of what the right wing wants in South Africa. It's too close to apartheid. You will never convince black South Africans that Solidarity, AfriForum, and Urania, that these organizations do not represent a return to apartheid. They sound like they do if you listen to Dirk Herman. It is the closest I can get to some German officer in 1945 telling people what's going to go wrong in this country. He comes very close to Jean Blanche for me sometimes. Just a little bit less fiery, because with these images it's hard to be fiery. But the message, you can't change the right-wingers. I don't think so. As much as you can't change Donald Trump's views about South Africa. It's cement in stone. It's not cement in thinking. It's not the result of a considered view and of broad consultation. It is dogma. And I don't know if it's possible for Ramaphosa to say something that will make him survive within his own, allow him to survive within his own party and satisfy the right-wingers.
Well, Piet Croukamp, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.